I was recently, last weekend, I was speaking at an event in Las Vegas called Freedom Fest. It was an awesome event. Now, Freedom Fest was something that I don't normally do. It was just about freedom. That's a big word. And as a matter of fact, today it's sort of a dirty word. I can't believe that I'm alive to see that some people think that freedom is like some crazy fringe right wing or something like that. Freedom is dangerous. It's violence. I would agree it actually is dangerous to let people be free. But that's part of being free. So anyway, Freedom Fest, and it was about all types of freedom. So there was quite a few libertarian groups that were there. As a matter of fact, I was invited by Jo Jorgensen. Shout out to Jo, if you're listening, Jo. She is I believe, the only female who's ran for president 2 times. And she's ran for president under the Libertarian Party. So Jo Jorgensen invited me there, and we did a panel on titled "The Price of Money." It was an interesting panel. It started out really well. It kind of started going into this kind of like back and forth war against a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. Was one I wasn't super interested in engaging in, but the initial price of money I thought was pretty interesting. And so then I got to speak to lots of people there at the Freedom Fest. And like I said, there was people from the Libertarian Party. There was people there for monetary or money freedoms. So there was gold guys and investment guys. And then there was health freedom. So then there was some of the big names that you might know, like Del Bigtree or Dr. Robert Malone there on health freedom. So all different types of freedom. One thing that Del Bigtree said, if you guys don't know who Del Bigtree is, you should definitely check him out. He has a lot of passion. I love a guy with a lot of passion. And he was on a rant, and he was on stage, and he said, "I don't care about your money." I think that was kind of a point to Bitcoin or gold. "I don't care about your money. I don't care, or freedom of money. I don't care about freedom of guns and your Second Amendment." He said, "This is the battle of our lifetime over your body. If you don't have freedom over your own body, you have no freedom at all," which was an awesome point that he made, and one that I would agree with. So anyway, it was great to do that. But anyway, back to the point. So I was on this panel, and I'm walking around the conference. I'm talking to all these different people who are all from different areas of life, and they've come for all different reasons, except for all about freedom. And I got asked a lot of questions, and I found that there was just this massive misunderstanding, but also, misunderstanding, I guess. Lack of understanding, maybe even is a better term, of what money even is. And I know that sounds kind of basic, and don't turn me off yet. I'm gonna back it up, right? So what is money? Well, I know what money is. I can open up my wallet. I have some, or I can go on my bank account and I can see how much money I have. But what is it? How is it used? What does it mean? And understanding that is the key to understanding what the heck is going on today in the world with the Federal Reserve and printing more money and raising interest rates and the economy shrinking and all these things. So there's that whole thing going on. So you need to understand what money is to understand that, but also how we could fix that, how we could have better versions of that, and what we might have in the future. And if you don't understand those basic things, then you just really don't have that first principles understand to build that on. So I thought, you know what, I'll take some of these questions, and I spent hours and hours and hours talking to all these people there at the event. Let me talk about this to my audience here. That's you. That's you listening right now. And we'll try to break that down. So understanding money is difficult. I'm not going to go all the way back to the beginning, or maybe I will real quickly. Let me go back to the beginning real quickly, and then we're going to advance past that. So if you know what I'm talking about, stick with me. I'm going to go through it real quickly. By the way, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Mark Moss Show, talking about what I call the decentralized revolution, looking at it through the lens of politics, finance, and technology, and as the world is changing right before our very eyes. And so, what is money? Money is a medium of exchange. Money is something that communicates value. It communicates what people want and what they don't want through something called price signals. It coordinates economies. So we could say it's a communication. We can say that it's a store of value. I don't want to get super philosophical with you here, but basically it's a way that I can store my value to be used at a later time. So I can store my wealth, my value, and I can use it to buy other things, medium exchange. We don't need money. We don't want money. Now, you might be going, what do you mean, Mark? Of course I want money. I want as much money as I can. Well, you don't really want money. What you want is the things that money will buy you. That's what you want. You want the things that money will buy you. So money is just that medium of exchange. It allows us to get what we want. It also, as I said, stores that value. So, for example, let's just say that I have to work for 4 hours a day to earn enough money to buy the food that I need to stay alive. Well, let's say that I decide to work an extra 4 hours. So now I'm going to work 8 hours that day. So I work an extra 4 hours. What do I do? How do I store that energy, those 4 hours that I worked? Well, I could put it, I get paid in money, and I hold that money. Now that 4 hours, that extra that I worked, I'm storing it in money, and tomorrow I could decide not to work tomorrow because I have those 4 hours saved up and I can buy that food that I need for the next day. Does that make sense? So now that we have a very basic understanding of money, what it's used for, how it works, we also have to understand that money is emergent. So what do I mean by that? Well, again, we don't want money. What we want is the things that money will buy us. So in the beginning, we didn't have money. We just had barter. I would trade you a chicken. You'd trade me a goat, right? If we're on a deserted island, you'd have coconuts. I'd go get a fish. And we'd trade for the things that we really want. But what happened is barter is extremely inefficient and it doesn't scale because you might not want my coconuts, my fish, my chicken, or my goat. And if you don't want any of those things, or the goat or the cow is too big, it's not divisible enough. You only want a little bit of the cow, but I only have a whole cow. And so, well, if you won't take that, would you take this instead? And that thing becomes a medium of exchange. And eventually enough things become a medium of exchange that one emerges. We were talking about before the break, what is money, and more specifically, so you can understand what's going on today with inflation and the Fed, and are they going to print more money, and what's happening with Europe and the bonds and all of these things. And so you have to understand them at the most basic. As I was saying, I was speaking at the Freedom Fest this last weekend, and this one piece of information seemed to be the biggest stumbling block for everybody. So I thought we'd talk about that today. So we talked about what is money. I'm not going to go back and rehash that. If you missed it, you can check it out on the podcast. Check out Mark Moss Podcast. Just search that on the iHeart Radio app. Of course, you can check it out on iTunes, anywhere that you listen to a podcast. Oh, and by the way, while you're at it, check me out on social media at one Mark Moss. That's right, at the number one Mark Moss. Now, so what is money? So money is like this favor. It allows me to store my value so I can spend it at a later time. So we got past that. What we use as money is emergent. We used to do barter because what we really want is the food or the goods or services, and we'd barter. But then we didn't have. If I didn't want my if I didn't want your chicken, and you didn't want my goat, we didn't have a deal. So we used a medium of exchange. We trade this instead, and eventually enough things became used as a medium of exchange where one thing emerged as the best, and of course that was gold. Gold was money for 5,000 years. You have to have the right attributes for it to be a good form of money. So, for example, it needs to be portable. It needs to be durable. It needs to be divisible. It needs to be saleable. It needs to be fungible. I'm probably not going to spend a bunch of time breaking all of those things down, but durable makes sense, right? If you used bananas for money, well, within about 5 days, those bananas are rotten. So it wouldn't be a very good form of money. Any type of food wouldn't be a good form of money. It's not durable. It also needs to be divisible. So if it was a cow wouldn't really work because you can't really break a cow down into small pieces. It also needs to be fungible, which means one is always worth one. So for example, you've seen like the oldest, dirtiest dollar bill you've ever seen that has tears in it is still worth the same as one brand new crisp dollar bill. So they're fungible. And so, of course, animals aren't fungible, right? Things like that aren't fungible. Baseball cards aren't fungible. And then finally, we need to be saleable. So enough people have to be willing to take it. So it could have all those attributes, but if no one's willing to take it from you, then it's not a very good form of money. And that kind of sums it up. And that's why gold really fit that bill. The problem with gold is it's not real portable. Now, I can put gold coins in my pocket and you and I can exchange. That's fine. But in the information age, gold doesn't work. I can't send you gold over Zoom. And so it didn't work. Now, actually, gold failed a lot longer before that. And it failed because it's not portable. And this is an important piece to understand. So gold, because it wasn't portable, I needed to pay somebody. I'm in New York. Somebody's in Germany in the 1400s or the 1500s. What do? Well, we don't really have a deal. And what we could do is we could put a bunch of gold on ships and we could sell it across the Atlantic, but then the ships crash and they get taken over by pirates and all of that. So that's not very, very good. So what did we do? How did we solve that? Now, real quick, that would be what we would consider commodity money. So commodity money would typically be that there's an evolution, and this is a big piece that people miss. There's an evolution to this. And so a lot of people are very quick to dismiss new things today because, oh, no, it's not that today. So Bitcoin isn't the best medium of exchange today. It's too volatile. Okay, well, maybe that's today, but does that mean it will always be that way? If we saw a little oak tree in the forest, and I said, hey, imagine this oak tree is going to be 100-foot one day. And you're like, no way, look how small it is. I'm like, but it has the attributes. It's an oak tree. But no, it can never be that way. But you have to understand things can evolve. And so things would typically evolve starting with a collectible. Hey, this is pretty cool. It's collectible. Let's collect it, right? It's a shiny rock. It's a cool feather. And then eventually things can become stores of value where if enough people collect them, then we store our wealth there. And you see that with rich people today, they store their wealth in collectible cars or paintings or things like that. And then eventually it could evolve into a medium of exchange, but only if it has those qualities that I've given you before. Now, a Mona Lisa painting is a collectible that has become a store of value. People are putting their value into those things, but it can't really become a medium of exchange because it doesn't have the money properties. It's not divisible. It's not portable. Right? It makes sense. It's not fungible. Well, there's only one Mona Lisa painting. So it doesn't have the moneyness quality, so it stops evolving there. And it's important to understand that. And we've had commodity money in the past. So commodity would mean that it has to be something that's useful or needed. And so gold was used for electronics, right? There was a need. You're going to listen to people like Peter Schiff tell you that gold has intrinsic value. There's intrinsic value there. Money must have intrinsic value. And I'm surprised that Peter Schiff says that because he's a very strong Austrian economist. And he should understand that there is no such thing as intrinsic value, that all value is subjective. All value is subjective. If I had $1 billion of gold, but I was on a deserted island and I had no boat, no phone, no food, no water, nowhere to spend the money, that gold is worthless. It's completely worthless to me. As a matter of fact, it could be a liability because now how do I even carry that around on a deserted island? So it's worth nothing to me. There's no intrinsic value to it. Now you might say, well, food then. Food would have intrinsic value because if you had it on the deserted island, that food would be worth a lot. Yes, but last night at dinner, I threw my leftovers away. That food had no value to me. See what I'm saying? So it's all subjective.